12:01, we will go ahead and get started. So hello everyone, again, welcome to Revolutionary Resume. My name is Erin Ahart and I am one of your two wonderful career counselors serving all CCAS graduate students. I'm joined by Dr. Johnette Ruffner-Ceaser, who is the other half of our CCAS Graduate Career Services team. So today we are truly talking about all things resume. We've packed a lot into just a 1-hour conversation. So before I get into anything else, I want to say, please ask us your questions. Please raise your hand, mute yourself, type your question in the chat. Because we're cramming so much into this session, I want to make sure that we do answer your questions, even if your question feels more basic than what's covered or more advanced than what's covered. There's no such thing as a stupid question, and we want to hear what your questions are. So before we get started, we just have a couple of housekeeping items. This Revolutionary Resume Workshop is our first workshop of the spring 2026 semester, and it's part of our Career Readiness Workshop series. Our Career Readiness Workshop series is our signature workshop series where Johnette and I share essential tips, tricks, and career advice that's really relevant to students across the Columbian College in all majors and programs. So like I said, this is just one workshop in that series. We have two other workshops coming up pretty soon. The first is A Cover Letter is Like a Love Letter on Wednesday, February 11th. And then we also have Interview with Ease, which is coming up later in February. We also have another very exciting event, which Dr. Ruffner-Ceaser will share more about with you later in today's workshop. So before we get into our introductions, I already said that make sure you ask your questions, so we will actually just get right into it. So again, hi everyone, my name is Erin Ahart and I'm just one half of your career services team. You've already heard from me, so I will turn it over to Dr. Johnette Ruffner-Ceaser to briefly introduce herself as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see you, and shout out to the brave soldiers who have decided to turn their cameras on. Really happy to see you. As the other half of the CCAS Graduate Career Services team, I've been with GW for almost 3 years now. And in addition to this, I also own a professional services agency where I support mid to senior level career women. Working here excites me because I get to share with you all of the tips and tricks that I give my really seasoned folks. And so hopefully you will be ahead of the game as you move forward to work on your resume and all of the other things that you need in order to be prepared for the workforce. I'm so happy to have you all to join us today.
Great. And on the screen, you can see both of our emails. Just shoot us an email at ccas_careers@gwu.edu to ask us any questions you have or to schedule an appointment with us. So we'll share a lot about resumes today, but the best way to learn if your resume is really on par and up to speed for the applications you're submitting is to meet with a career counselor one-on-one. So you can also see on the screen here, you can schedule an appointment on Handshake. You can take a picture of this slide with your phone. We'll also send out some information after today's workshop, but just easily schedule an appointment by going to that link, gwu.joinhandshake.com/edu. All right. And really quick, I also want to share some other GW resume resources that you have access to. The first is GWU VMock. So this is a way that you can get your resume reviewed by AI before meeting with a career counselor, just to get some extra feedback from this platform that GW pays for. So we want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that. We are upgrading to a better AI resume review platform in just a couple of months, but while we have VMock, please take advantage of this great service. We also have resume guides on Handshake. So you can also see the link to those resume guides as well. These guides were created by the Maine Center for Career Services. So while most of you attending this workshop are CCAS graduate students, you also have a lot of other resources that you can utilize across the university. And finally, again, please make sure you schedule an appointment with Dr. Ruffner-Ceaser and myself. So what will you get out of today's workshop? In this session, you will understand the characteristics of a U.S. resume, when you need one, and what to include. You'll learn formatting and bullet point do's and don'ts, plus how to beat the applicant tracking systems. If people on the call could, add a reaction, give me a thumbs up, add any kind of reaction to let me know who here has heard of an applicant tracking system before. Okay, Emma, I see your thumbs up. All right, so we'll definitely get into that a little bit more and really talk about the ATSs. You'll also receive the secret sauce to capturing the attention of hiring managers, and we'll just briefly start to talk about how to narrate your professional story in a way that not only excites hiring managers, but also showcases your unique strengths and accomplishments. And Johnette will talk more about professional branding later in the workshop today. Okay, so with that, I will turn it back over to Johnette to kick us off.
Thank you, Erin. So one of the things that we didn't mention that you will get today is we want to talk about resume myths. And these are myths that can significantly impact creating an effective resume that you can use time and time and time again. And so, as graduate students preparing to enter or advance within the professional world, your resume will often be, as you know, the first impression employers, organizations, or decision makers will have of you. But here's the truth that most people are taught resume writing in a way that focuses only on surface level details and misses the big picture. And so today we want to challenge 4 common resume myths that quietly limit your career opportunities. And these myths don't just affect how your resume looks, they affect how you think about yourself and how you position your skills and how you confidently pursue professional opportunities. So this session isn't just about the nuts and bolts of resume writing. It's about helping you to understand your value, build professional confidence, and learn how to position yourself strategically as you transition from student to professional or moved higher in your current professional capacity. And so by the end of the presentation, you'll walk away with a new mindset and practical insights. So as I go through these 4 myths, I want you to tune in really keenly and let us know in the chat which one of the myths stand out for you. Okay, so myth 1, resume writing is only an external process. So most people are taught that resume writing is a one-part external process, again, focused on the fundamentals, formatting, your layout, content, font selection, style, word choice, tailoring, all of those good things. And while these elements are important, they represent only half of the equation. There is a second and often overlooked part of your resume writing process, and that's the internal mental process. What you think about shapes what you believe influences how you feel, and how you feel directly impacts the decisions you make, including how you present yourself on your resume. So simply put, the way you see yourself shows up on each page of your resume. And it appears in the language you use to describe your background, what you recognize as valuable experience, what you minimize or leave out, and how confidently you highlight your accomplishments, and even which accomplishments you feel are worthy, or opportunities rather, you feel are worthy of pursuing. And so when you shift your mindset, you don't just improve your resume, you transform the story you tell about your professional value, not only outwardly, but inwardly. All right. Myth number 2, resumes are written only to appeal to hiring managers. Well, while hiring managers are the audience, your resume should be written for you first. Before you can effectively market yourself to others, you must first know, understand, and believe in your own value including your expertise, your talents, and unique gifts. You are a brand. And just like any successful brand, you must clearly understand what you offer before you can communicate it uh, in the marketplace. And a hiring manager can only see your resume based on what you see in yourself. So think about it this way. If you were in the market to purchase a product that costs thousands of dollars, would you buy it if the description failed to communicate its value or results? Well, of course not. And so the same principle applies to hiring. Employers are investing in you. And if you can't clearly articulate your value, impact, and outcomes, they can't justify making that investment. So before you can sell your skills to a hiring manager, you must first define what you're selling and why it matters. So when you own your value, your resume stops being a list of duties and starts becoming a compelling professional story. Okay. If myth 1 or 2 resonates with you, please put it in the chat. Don't be afraid. It's okay. We're all friends here. All right. Myth 3. The primary purpose of a resume is to get a job. Well, a resume is not just a tool for job searching. It is a tool for opportunity seeking. I believe when you're in the market for a job, you can find opportunities, professional opportunities anywhere. And so you need to be prepared. And when you approach resume writing with this mindset, you stop thinking like an applicant and start thinking like a professional brand owner. Thank you. Thank you, Leah. Your resume is an opportunity to assess your skills and value proposition, which means to clearly define what you bring to the marketplace and what makes you stand out. Also, it allows you to identify growth areas and skill gaps, helping you to become more intentional about your professional development. Also, thinking about your resume in this way helps you to build confidence by internalizing and truly owning your experience, achievements, and impact. And it allows you to take authority over your personal brand instead of allowing others to define you. Brand authority is what we're really talking about. And brand authority is the level of trust, credibility, and recognition you hold within your industry. It reflects how strongly others believe in your expertise and the value you provide. Professionals with strong brand authority are seen as reliable, influential, and knowledgeable leaders in their field. And this authority is built through consistent, high quality work, clear communication, demonstrated results, and a strong professional reputation. So when your resume is aligned with mindset, it becomes more than a document. It really becomes a positioning tool that opens doors to roles, projects, collaborations, and career advancement opportunities. So your resume shouldn't just help you find a job. It should help you claim your space, communicate your value, and expand what's possible in your career. All right. Any takers on myth number 3? Okay. Our last and final myth is fancy formatting will impress employers. Well, while a visually appealing resume may initially grab attention, overly complex designs often do more harm than good. Many employers use applicant tracking systems to screen resumes, and heavy graphics, columns, decorative layouts can sometimes interfere with readability and keyword scanning. Although the technology is improving, but in some cases, this can still be a challenge. So I'm a fan of clean, professional formatting. because it ensures your resume is easy to read for both technology and human reviewers. So what truly impresses hiring managers isn't flashy designs, it's relevance and clarity. Employers are looking for resumes that are thoughtfully tailored to the role and clearly communicate your skills, experience, and impact. And this level of customization comes from understanding, again, who you are professionally and confidently articulating what you bring to the table. So, at its core, resume writing is not about aesthetics. It's about introspection and positioning. It's an opportunity to reflect on your professional value, strengthen your brand authority, and increase your confidence in how you present your expertise. And when done well, your resume becomes a tool that empowers you to communicate your value effectively across interviews, networking conversations, and career advancement opportunities. I want to thank you all for sharing the myths, and it looks like number 3 resonates with most people. And when at the end of the presentation, we are happy to entertain any questions or feedback that you have about any of those myths. And I'll turn it back over to Erin.
All right. And I love what you said, Leah. I finally got rid of the graphics on my fancy version and made it plain after no bites all summer. Yep. So many people have the same experience. And so thank you so much, Johnette, for giving such a high level overview of what a resume is. It's really for you and your own job search goals. Now we're going to pull it back to basics, and I'll give you another brief overview more on a basic level, and then we'll go through each section of a resume and how to really craft it from scratch. So what is a resume? A resume is a one-page summary of who you are as a professional. Again, it's for you. How does this document accurately represent you and your greatest strengths as a professional? It's a snapshot of your most relevant skills and experience. So I've also heard Dr. Ruffner-Ceaser say, you don't want a kitchen sink resume with absolutely everything you've ever done. The employer only looks at a resume for an average of 7.2 seconds before deciding if they want to interview you or if they're not going to move forward with you through the interview process. And so because of that, your resume truly is a snapshot with just your most relevant skills, education, and experience. It's a place to demonstrate your organization, grammar, and attention to detail. Some employers, if they see a typo on your resume, that shows them that you don't have attention to detail. And so this is really a place to demonstrate your writing skills and that attention to detail and organization. And finally, it's a tool that might help push your application to the top of the pile with ATS optimization. So at the beginning of this workshop, I know some of you joined a few minutes later. At the beginning, I asked who here has heard of an applicant tracking system, and some of you have, some of you haven't. So an applicant tracking system is really the system that hiring managers use to manage all of the incoming job applications. And I can briefly share how I've used this when I worked in HR for a short period of time. So I was tracking using the applicant tracking system on Indeed all the incoming applications. And a myth related to ATS is that if you don't tailor your resume or if you don't use the right keywords, a hiring manager won't see it. That's not true. What will happen though is the applicant tracking system will rank resumes by high match, some match, and low match. LinkedIn does the same exact thing. And so you want to tailor your resume enough or simply apply to positions that are aligned with you and what you offer, so that way you get in that high match pile. Because let's say a hiring manager has 250 people apply for one job. If there are 40 to 50 people in that high match category, and I already find 30 qualified applicants out of that group who I want to interview, it's less likely that I'm going to move forward and read all of the rest of those 250 applications, because that takes a lot of time for the hiring manager. So that's why you want to get into that high match category for an ATS system, and that's a little bit about how that works. I also have a star next to the question, when do I need a resume? We're always thinking about, okay, a resume is what I use when I apply for a job and submit a formal job application, but you can use it for so many other things. Don't forget to use it at networking events, at job and internship fairs. And really, your LinkedIn profile is a digital version of your resume. So after you do all the work of going through your experiences, writing those bullet points, then you can take information from your resume, use it to fill out that experience section on your LinkedIn account, and that becomes the digital version of your resume for people to view after they meet you or if they want to connect with you and come across your profile. So now we're really going to get into creating your document as if you are starting from scratch and go through each section that you really need. And we have a question, is this format the best practice format? I'm assuming you're talking about the image of the resume on the right, correct? Yeah, so there are a lot of different formats that could work. This is a really standard format that you'll see on the internet if you search, what is a resume? It is pretty standard, but we'll go through and show some different versions of what this could look like. By no means does your resume have to look exactly like that or, fit that exact format. It really just depends on you and what experience you offer. Okay, so now this is going to sound really basic to many of you, but I did not want to overlook it because it's so important with all of the templates out there. You've all seen the templates that are available on Canva. ChatGPT can even give you a resume template that you can download after you've added that information in there, but you never want to use a template, and here's why. When you upload your resume to an applicant tracking system, so when you hit apply and it goes into that applicant tracking system, some of these systems, employers have indicated we don't like AI resumes. We don't like templates. And so those programmers are programming those systems to weed out the resumes that have been created using an AI platform. So you always want to start from scratch. That is my personal opinion. You'll hear some other opinions out there because things are changing so quickly with AI and evolving technology. But you always know that if you create a resume on your own from scratch, there's never going to be a problem. And so that's why I encourage it. So first, to create this document, you're going to use Microsoft Word or Google Docs. I've gotten resumes from students in the past who've used Apple Pages, and employers cannot read that resume. I actually can't open it on my laptop if I don't have a Mac computer. So you always want to use Microsoft Word or Google Docs and choose one easy to read font that's between 10 point and 12 point font. Anything less than 10 is too small. I really can't read that well and I have pretty good eyesight. So with that is kind of the measure. You never want to go less than 10. I prefer 11 point font. Fonts like Helvetica Neue, Arial, Calibri, Cambria, those are all fonts that you could use, Times New Roman. Use 0.5 inch to 1 inch margins. Personally, I think with 1 inch margins, if you're trying to fit all of your experience on one page, that might be a little too thick and it's gonna limit the amount of space you have. So on my own resume, I use 0.75, but you can use 0.5 inch. And if you go into a Word document and click the margins area, that's narrow. So if you click narrow margins, that's 0.5. Use 1 inch to 1.15 inch spacing, no larger or smaller than that. And then no matter what you do, you always want to submit this as a PDF when you're applying. If you submit as a Word document, sometimes the spacing and words can be thrown off because a lot of us are using different spacing strategies to fit everything on one page. So that's why you always want to submit as a PDF. I also see a question, what about a photo in the right corner? I frequently come across some of those resumes. Is this practice out of date? Yes, you never want to include a photo on your resume. And really a big reason for this is for equity. So you don't want someone to be focusing on what you look like when you apply for a job. You want them to focus on your experience and your brand and what you offer. They can go see what you look like if they want to on your LinkedIn profile, but it's not about what you physically look like. And that photo takes up valuable space for when you want to be talking and giving more detail about the experience you can provide. Thank you for so many questions. This is great. So now you've created your document, right? You're getting right into the top, you're adding in your header. So this is an example of my actual header from my own resume. And then we have another example from a mythical GW student. So you have your name big and bolded up top. I always recommend have your name larger than all other text on the resume because they know who you are. And I also tell people on your cover letter, use the same header on your resume, on your cover letter too, then it's a package deal. And so employers, see that together. Okay, this person was intentional enough to use the same format and use the same header on the cover letter too. So always have your name big and bolded. When you list your location, you'll do city, state. The example below is actually outdated. You don't need to put your address. No one's mailing you anything. No one needs to look up your zip code. And I also prefer to keep all of this information, location, email, phone number, LinkedIn URL on one line, because it's all about saving that space. Use a personal Gmail. You can use your GW email, but I always caution people against this because what if you make a great connection with someone, they have your GW email somewhere in their email, they see that email, they want to, reach out to you later, and now you can't access that GW email anymore once you've graduated. And you're also positioning yourself as a professional. Yes, we're students, it's giving us great experience, but you want people to look at you and think of you like a professional. Phone number, and then you'll see that I have my LinkedIn URL, and you'll see that it says Erin Ahart at the back end, and this is called a vanity URL. So without changing that to your first name, last name, you'll have a bunch of different characters and weird numbers, but you always want to change that. And so here's how you do it. I'm just going to admit a couple people really quick. So to change your LinkedIn URL to something that looks, more put together, if you go to your LinkedIn profile and click on that profile so you can see all of your information, go to the right-hand side of LinkedIn, and then you'll see this first box here, profile language and public profile and URL. You want to click on the little pencil next to public profile and URL, and then it'll take you down to where you can edit your custom URL. So you'll click on the pencil again. They really make you click on this multiple times to edit this. But then finally, you'll be taken to where you see that my name is underlined over here on the right. You could use this, back space bar and type in your first name and your last name. Most people, I haven't met another person with my first name and last name, but most people, there's somebody else out there with the same first and last name as you. If someone's already done this, then you can add your favorite number after your name, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, any questions about the header or your LinkedIn URL? Any questions about anything we've shared so far? All right, I'm not seeing any, so we will continue to move on. So next, underneath your header, you could include a professional summary or an objective. This is something that Johnette and I both get a ton of questions about because there's a lot of different advice out there. Either you should include one, you shouldn't include one. What's the difference between a summary and an objective? So a summary introduces you as a professional. You're truly summarizing your experience, and it's highlighting your most relevant or impressive skills and experience. This is really helpful if you have a 2-page resume, you have a lot of experience, maybe you have between 8 and 10 years of experience in your field, and you really want to draw the employer's attention to specific aspects of your experience. I always tell people, you want to tell the employer how they should be perceiving you. You don't want to allow them to make their own assumptions, even though they will. And a summary spells it out exactly for them what you want them to know about you. So that's why it's really helpful. An objective is different because it's really stating your objective or the goal of your job search. So people will typically write, I am seeking museum studies related internships at, these organizations or this one organization that they're applying for. I don't recommend objectives anymore simply because it's obvious why you're applying to the role. They know that you're interested in that kind of job simply because you've submitted the application. And a summary is actually providing more value. When the employer reads the summary, they know how you want them to view you, and they're now starting to learn important information about you. They don't really care to learn about your goal when it's obvious that the goal is to apply for this kind of role. Now, people often ask, do I need one? Do I not? You don't have to include a professional summary. And a lot of career coaches say that if you're just starting out in your career with 1 to 3 years of experience, that you don't need one and you might not want to include one. But I definitely think it's really important for more advanced professionals, and it can still be really helpful even if you're early on in your career, if you, again, still want to summarize that experience and draw attention to specific aspects of your experience. I see a question, about someone with a long employment record, some hard skills and some soft skills. Is it too much to put that information onto one page, or is a 2-page resume okay? That's actually a great question because I didn't mention the 1-page versus 2-page aspect of resume writing. The traditional guidance is to keep your resume to 1 page, but that is just not possible if you have more than 10 years of experience. It's really difficult for people. So it is okay if you go on to a 2nd page, as long as you're not filling up that 2nd page just for the sake of filling up that 2nd page. It should be really relevant, important experience that you feel your resume would be incomplete without. So I always also ask people, by omitting this experience to jam pack everything onto 1 page, do you feel like something really important is missing? And if the answer is yes, then you want to put that back in, go onto a 2nd page. It's okay. All right. So moving on to the education section. Another commonly asked question about this is, should this go at the top of my resume, beneath my header and my summary, or should it go at the bottom? For professionals with years and years of experience, a lot of them will choose to put it at the bottom because their most important experience could be the last 2 full-time roles they had with, years of experience in those roles. But for current GW students, you're most likely here at GW because you know that this degree is going to help you achieve your job search goals. And so this is one of the main things that makes you an attractive candidate. So a lot of students, I would recommend that you put your education section at the top. So in your education section, you'll see that you'll list GW, you'll list the location, and to the right, you'll list either your expected graduation date, or if you've already graduated, you'll list the month and year that you graduated. This section is a little bit different than the rest of your resume because you won't put August 2022 to May 2024 or to present or to current. Instead, it's just going to be expected month, year, or again, if you've already graduated, it's going to be December 2017, May 2013, like you see in the example below. You'll list your school beneath it if you have enough room. So you could list Columbian College of Arts and Sciences. These are examples from students in the Trachtenberg School. And then you'll put your degree. So you'll see in the bottom example, you can put BA, you can spell it out, you can do Bachelor of Arts, Master of Arts, or you can put MA, MS, MBA. And then you definitely want to write out what the program or the concentration was. You'll see in the first section, this person included relevant coursework and academic research. But you by no means need to have this much detail and this many bullet points in the education section. It's simply an option. So a lot of you are working on important projects, class projects that are giving you great relevant experience. You're taking relevant coursework. You are doing research in your subject area. Relevant coursework, I would say, is one where you're probably going to want to keep that in your education section. But if you're doing something like really relevant in-depth research, I would argue that you could put that in your experience section so you can add bullet points to really describe why that research was important and what you gained from it, what skills you gained from it. So there are lots of different ways to add in those other experience related to your education section, but what you definitely need in that education section is GW, the school you were in, your degree name, and your GPA if you want to include that, and the date you graduated. Any questions about education before we move on to experience? Seeing none, I will move on. All right, so the experience section, this really trips people up sometimes. What should I include? And I really want to draw your attention to this graphic on the right. It's one of my favorite graphics to show people in any of our workshops, which is this feedback loop, right? I can't get a job because I have no experience, but I can't get a job because I have no experience, or because I have no experience, I can't get a job. It goes around in this endless feedback loop. You know, students come to me and they say, well, I don't have experience, so I can't get an internship, but I need that internship to put that experience on my resume. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because so many people come to Johnette and I and say, I have no experience. How am I going to write this resume? But I'm telling you right now, there's no way that you could get in to the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. and be a human living on this earth and not have good experience. You have valuable experience that you can talk about on a resume 100%. So to the left, you'll see the most common sections that you can include. There are so many more, which we'll get to in a second, but education, relevant coursework, class projects, research, work experience, leadership experience, volunteer experience, clubs and organizations, technical skills, certifications, honors fellowships, and awards. I've seen people talk about their military background, their caregiving experience for a sick parent or a family member, hobbies and interests that have given them some kind of technical skill or experience. There are so many different things that you could talk about. I see a question, would you list a publication if it's not necessarily related to the position you're applying for? I ask because my degree is interdisciplinary. Absolutely. Now, you don't have to go into, what that publication was or give a lot of detail if you feel like that space is better spent on something else. But if you are published, that means you did research, you understand how to do a lit review to gather information. There are so many different transferable skills that you can take into any future job because of that publication. And so at the very least, just listing it towards the bottom of your resume, but you could certainly put it higher if you feel that those transferable skills are still helpful, even if the subject matter isn't directly related to the job you're looking at. Absolutely. So let's talk some more about what should you include. This is one of my favorite activities and the way that I love teaching this area to people on their resumes. First, and great point, Johnette. Yes, add the publication to your LinkedIn profile. Awesome. So the first thing I would do when thinking about, okay, what should I put on my resume, is I want everyone to make a list of absolutely everything that you've done in your professional career so far, and even those things that you might not think are necessarily professional paid experiences. You could think about this as a master resume. Some people have these master resumes with everything they've ever done, and then they pick and choose from that and put it on a more tailored, focused resume. But all I'm asking you to do is just make a list for now. Then start to think about what jobs, internships, contract roles, part-time jobs you're looking at, and find 5 job descriptions for the types of jobs that you're applying for. So this is really helpful because you can see what they have in common. What are they each looking for? And then identify which of your skills and experiences are most relevant to what they say they want in the job description. And then you can start to think about, okay, I know I have these skills, this knowledge, this education, these qualifications. How could I use different headings to categorize them? And that's how you're going to choose what sections you have on the resume. I always tell people, again, put your most relevant experience first, because employers only look at a resume for 7.2 seconds. And you also may not need to separate your paid work experiences from other experiences. Let's say that you're applying for forensic psychology related positions and you've had an internship as a mitigation specialist, but you've also done research related to forensic psychology. You can simply put forensic psychology experience and list both of those in that section. My favorite heading is relevant experience, because if you're struggling to break them up, of course, talk to Johnette and I in a one-on-one appointment and we can work with you on this. But you can use relevant experience as kind of a catch-all header or heading. I see a question, do we need to write the city, country on top of the date for different degrees and work experience? So I always recommend city, state, but if you've worked in another country, you do want to include the name of that country so people know, because hiring managers might not recognize that city and state. And then one more note about sections and headings, chronological order. I'm sure a lot of you have heard, put your most recent experience first, dating back, right? You can switch things around as long as the experience was in the last 3 years. You can move things around so your most relevant experience is first, because again, they want to see what's relevant to the job. So, I also think about students. They've had 2 internships. Their internship last year was more relevant than the one they've had this year. They were kind of just testing the waters, seeing what they like, what they don't like. You can put last year's internship first if it was more relevant to the job. All right, and again, to continue to drive this point home about headings and different experiences you can list, here's some more examples. Programming languages. Foreign languages, study abroad experience. People often forget about study abroad. Project experience, public speaking experience, honors, professional certifications. And so once you've decided what your section headings are going to be, you've decided what you want to include, now it's time to properly format this. And this is another example of a very basic, very standard resume that would definitely work for you. And, you can jazz it up a little bit, but like Johnette said in the beginning, fancy templates are typically not helpful, and it's okay if your resume looks a little boring. So you'll see that this person listed their U.S. Department of State experience. So they're listing the place they worked first. Beneath that, they're listing their role. Across from that, they're listing city, state, and again, month, year to present. Now below, you'll see their Inter-American Dialogue experience was in the past. So they're saying January to May 2018, so they're not listing to present. And you'll also start to notice the difference in the bullet points. So in the first experience, this person is always starting with action verbs, but they're saying compile, draft, organize, possess, because this is still happening. So they're using present tense verbs. In the past, at their Inter-American Dialogue experience, they're saying conducted, redesigned, assisted, performed, because this happened in the past. I'm also going to point out some things that I don't like about these bullet points. And the first is that there are a couple where 1 or 2 words fall onto a second line. I personally, that is one of my bullet point pet peeves, because you have all of this white space that is left that could be used up. And so in this case, you want to think about, how can I make this more concise? Or if it's already a short bullet point, how can I combine it with a very closely related bullet point? I see some questions that I want to address. Should you alphabetize these points or does it not matter? That does not matter, so you don't even have to worry about it. Great question though. And then another one is, what about projects accomplished in a previous job? If relevant, is it good to put them and how to prove them? Absolutely. So when you're listing that previous work experience, you can list the project that you worked on as a bullet point. And we'll talk more about how to write effective bullet points. And with the proof that you're talking about, adding numbers is a great way to prove it. It adds to your credibility and trust. You can talk about the results or impact of that project. So why was that project important? And we'll talk more about that in just a couple of slides here. Great question too. So bullet point do's and don'ts. Some things that you do want to do is you want to use 3 to 5 bullet points per experience, no more than about 6. It really depends on how long you worked there and how many amazing things you did in that job. If it was a really short, 2-month-long internship, maybe 3 bullet points is enough. But if it was a full-time role you worked in for 3+ years and accomplished so much in that role, the number of bullet points also indicates to the employer what they should pay attention to, because you're showing that you want to take up space on the page by including all of that information. You do want to use action words to begin your statements. Again, past tense if you're no longer in the role, present tense if you're currently in the role. Quantify your experience by using numbers. Do use keywords from the job description. That moves us into resume tailoring territory, which we're not going to touch too much on today, but we have covered that in past workshops. And then you want to maximize your white space. Again, if we're trying to fit this onto 1 or 2 pages, we have to be really strategic. What you do not want to do is you don't want to let 1 word or 1 or 2 words fall onto a second line. Don't be vague or general. So again, back to that question, how to prove it. You want to be specific because that adds to your credibility. Don't repeat the same action word several times. So if you're saying organized, 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 instead, how can you say organized, redistributed, managed, reclassified, something else that is similar? Don't fabricate, don't exaggerate, don't be dramatic. Everything on your resume is fair game for them to ask about in an interview. They could say, oh, Erin, I saw that you did this and this in your past job looking at this bullet point. Tell me more about that. And so you always want to be able to explain it. This becomes even more important if you are using AI to work on that resume, because there are times when it will add in percentages that you never asked for and that are not true. So if you are going to use AI, it's even more critical for you to just make sure that everything is accurate and how you would say it yourself. Don't copy and paste the job description word for word into your resume. If your resume just looks like a clone of the job description, employers pick up on that and they know you're just trying to game the system. And don't talk about yourself in the first person. So you're not saying, I did this, they did this. You're always starting with the action word. Delivered this instead of I delivered this. Here's some more action word examples. Diagnosed, designed, collected, composed, computed, delegated, facilitated, financed, provided, promoted, programmed. So many different options. And this is something, that Google AI could really help you with, is diversifying those action words.
Erin, could I interject right here as it relates to using action verbs? Many
Yes.
times I will see students and clients use the phrase responsible for, managing.
Mhm.
Just say managed or managing. Start with the verb. Responsible for is unnecessary.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes it sound more impressive because it puts the ownership back on you. Completely agree. Another question is, could you elaborate on how to quantify your contributions? What kinds of metrics or proxies employers tend to find most compelling? So that's a great question, and I will share that with you in the first example. We have a couple examples coming up, but something that I want to say first is never, just like I said, don't fill up a second page for the sake of filling up a second page. Don't add numbers and percentages just for the sake of doing so. So a lot of people will write, increased productivity by 15%. Well, how did you measure that? How do you know you increased productivity by 15%? Use numbers that are true and that you can explain when asked about them. So, for example, if you're working on a team or you're managing people, how many people did you manage? How large was the data set you worked with if you're in a technical field? But let's get into how to write effective bullet points, and we'll talk even more about that. So how do you write a well-rounded, well-written bullet point? You do that by using the SAR method: situation, action, and result. So what does that mean? For each experience, your bullet points should clearly tell the story of what you did, that's the situation, the action, or how you did it, and the result, and what the results or impacts were. I find that it's a lot easier to think about what did I do, how did I do it, and why did I do it, or what was the impact. Keep in mind that the first person who reads this resume might be an HR person who doesn't know what you do, and they're making the match before it gets to the hiring manager. So you can also be more descriptive about the situation if you think that someone might be reading this who might not immediately understand what you do. So here's an example from my own resume in a past job. Generated more than 2,300 clothing donations. That's what I did for the 2023 Career Closet event. That's the situation, just describing what the event was. So how did I generate 2,300 clothing donations? Via extensive campus and community outreach. That's the how. And then the result was receiving recognition on Channel 7 News and WBZ Boston Radio. So I'll kind of go through that again so you can really pinpoint where the situation, action, result was. Generated more than 2,300 clothing donations for the 2023 Career Closet event. That was what I did. Situation. Via extensive campus and community outreach. That was how I did it. And finally, the result, receiving recognition on Channel 7 News and WBZ Radio. So the number there was the number of clothing donations. Now, one note is this is one of the most measurable impacts that I've had in a job, was that something was recognized on TV and on the radio. The result or impact does not need to be like that for every single bullet point, and it probably shouldn't be. It can be more descriptive and more explanatory. So we'll go into that in the next couple of examples. So another example is analyze climate policy outcomes. That's the what they did. How they did it was using SPSS to address data gaps in regional emissions trends. And then the result was producing a findings report cited in a faculty-led publication. Now, if this work was not published, like let's say the findings were not cited in a faculty-led publication, that doesn't mean that this experience wasn't valuable to list, because they're saying the reason why they were doing it was to address data gaps in regional emissions trends. That's still really getting at the impact and the why they were doing it, why it was important. The next example, designed and executed a mixed method study to examine student retention challenges, collecting and coding 300 survey responses and interviews, informing program level recommendations. So this is kind of what I meant by the data set, right? Coding 300 survey responses. And then finally, led weekly discussion sections for 40 undergraduate students to improve comprehensions of core economic theories, increasing average exam scores. So this person talked about the why too. Like, why are they leading discussion sections? To improve comprehension of core economic theories. If you're having a really hard time coming up with a specific measurable result, it's okay to focus on the why. Now, again, I have a, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just one more hack, if you will, for results. If the result did not happen, you can put intended result. So it may not have been specific, but you know the intended result is to do X, Y, and Z. So that's another way that it can be included.
I love that. Great. So just the last couple of things on bullet points. As you all know, you can use AI to write effective bullet points, but the most important thing is that it's not idea generation. It's not coming up with things you did. It's always you using this AI platform really for grammar purposes and just fine tuning, making things more concise. You are always the one who knows the most about what you did, and that's something that only you can do. AI cannot do that for you. And the AI also doesn't know the impact or really how to phrase that impact in a way that's true to who you are. And so that's why you do want to meet with someone in a one-on-one career coaching appointment. If you're interested in learning more about how you can use AI to help you and level up, we have done a workshop on this in the past. It's called Effective Job Searching with ChatGPT, and you can see the link where you can watch that here. It's on our CCAS Career Services YouTube channel, and we include a bunch of past workshops that we've done that have been recorded on that YouTube channel. So check it out for a bunch more resources. And the final section that I'll talk about is the skills section. And this one is similar to the education section in that you can put it at the top of your resume or at the bottom. And I know we're getting close on time, so I'll try and speed through this last section. It just depends on your field. So if you're in a technical field like data science, you're going to put this skills section directly under education. You could include things like programming languages, database systems. You could include creative software like Adobe Creative Cloud, Adobe Acrobat, CapCut, video editing tools, Instagram editing tools, anything that is a tangible technical skill or platform that you're using. Canva, Microsoft Office Suite. If you have any questions about the skills section, please let me know. Someone like me, I'm focusing on my experience because I think my most valuable skills are my communication skills and education skills. I'm including that in my experience. My technical skills are at the bottom for those extra add-ons. And so before we close out, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Ruffner-Ceaser to share what the next step is for taking your resume and your application and professional branding to the next level.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Thank you all for your awesome questions. Really, really great. We love your engagement. So to take this to the next step, we want to invite you to the Columbian College graduate students event called the Professional Branding Bootcamp. And this is for all Columbian College graduate students within the final year of their program. This is going to take place on March 20th, all day, with Erin and I, and we have alumni that will be joining us as well. So this is everything you need to know about securing professional opportunities before you leave GW. We will be talking about professional branding. You'll have the opportunity for a free professional headshot. And I also mentioned hearing advice from GW alumni. We'll be talking more about resume alignment, establishing your professional presence, and much, much more. And there's also the opportunity to network and to, if you've been watching us online for several months, you'll have the opportunity to speak with us in person as well. I want you to know, however, that space is limited. I'll say it again, space is limited. And so, let me say this, it is currently half full. So if you are within the last year of your program and you want more support and you know that you are committed to this, meaning be there in person, this will not be a virtual option. We put it on a Friday so that it's convenient for all to be able to participate. We want you to register today using the QR code that's about to come up. and put it on your calendar. Commit to being there. If you know any individuals who fit the requirements or for this opportunity, share this with them as well. But don't delay, don't think long, don't think hard. Go ahead and register and commit to being with us on March 20th.
Awesome. And with that, we want to thank you so much for attending today's workshop and sticking with us, for your amazing questions. We hope that we'll see you in person at Professional Branding Bootcamp. And if not, then we hope we'll see you online for our next few upcoming workshops. Johnette and I will stay on for a few minutes to ask any specific questions that you want to ask us. But for now, we hope to see you in the next couple of upcoming events. Make sure you continue to check your email every Tuesday for that Career Services newsletter. And we thank you for joining us.